Welcome to the ReWire podcast. I'm your host, Ryan Stewman, and I'm here to rewire your mind for success. We're glad that you're here.
All right, what's up, everybody? You know, every now and then here on the ReWire podcast, and if you haven't been paying attention, this is the only podcast I'm doing right now. So that we wound down after more than a decade of the Hardcore Closer podcast. I've tried to shut that thing down multiple times and been talked out of it. This time I put my foot down because I really want to focus on just one channel. I think it gets confusing. It's a lot to keep up with two podcasts. So ReWire, sometimes, most of the time, it's going to be a little 5-minute format with some motivational speech. Sometimes it might be 30-minute content with me. Today we're going to take, my hopes is that we take an hour or more to have a meaningful conversation. I try to bring people here on the podcast that you don't know. The last guest I had on here was Mike Jones, who is my banker. The guy really taught us a lot of important information about how the banking system works and the state of the banking system right now and what to expect. So when I bring somebody on here, it may not, and occasionally it might be, but it may not be an influencer. It may not be a Hollywood celebrity or Fat Joe, some of the people that I've had on here, but that doesn't minimize the effect they have in the world. That doesn't minimize the success they have. That doesn't minimize the impact and the value that they're going to bring to this show. I try to find, just like my events, I try to find people that have true value. There's a lot of what my friend Bobby Castro calls flash dancers in the world. And my friend Derek Harper Sr. calls them dancing bears, right? But the bottom line is there's a lot of people who regurgitate shit and say unoriginal stuff out there and are just, a big echo chamber. And I try to bring people in here who are really doing stuff, who are really making a difference in the world around them. And the world around them may be 10 people, it may be 10,000, maybe 10 million, doesn't matter. The world around you that you bring the change to is what matters. And today, I've brought a friend of mine, a client, someone that I've personally been mentoring for almost a year now, someone who I believe is a person that truly lives by the core values that we set in place, a person that's a great representative and doing some amazing stuff in his marketplace. So I wanted to get Kenny on here to where we could have a conversation because I think some of the things that he's accomplished through his business and the wisdom that he's got because of the life that he's lived is something that's going to be value to this audience. We were just having a discussion, Kenny, before this about the audience that listens to this podcast. This isn't, you're probably listening to this podcast. You're not a rookie. You've probably listened to rookie podcasts and you're trying to find something that's a little bit more advanced, a little more in depth, a little less political or energized or sensationalized by the headline news. And that's what we're trying to create here. We've got an experienced audience full of people like us, guys that they go to work in work boots more often than fancy shoes. Not your case, I guess, sometimes. So, Kenny, you do have very fancy shoes.
I do have fancy shoes.
but you are in a blue-collar job, right?
Oh, I'll put the sneakers on, man, hit some doors. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so, thanks, first of all, for coming by.
Thank you
welcome back
me.
to Texas.
I love Texas.
And let the audience know where you traveled here from.
Traveled from Maryland, and I come here once a month to see you.
And so you're from Maryland? You lived there your whole life?
Yeah, I'm not very well traveled. So, in fact, I just started flying. It was an accomplishment in itself, flying on my own. How long has it been? Since January.
Yeah,
so
January, I guess.
That alone was like a big step for me. I'm not super cultured or anything like that. But Maryland's been the DMV area, DC, Maryland, Virginia.
Gotcha. And what kind of business you operating up there?
It's a remodeling business, but we're very focused on the roofing aspect. But I don't want to minimize it to that because there's kind of two business models. And when people say, especially in this community, roofing, they're talking about insurance restoration. That's a whole different business model, comparatively speaking, to say where I'm from. Which, when you say remodeling industry, there are big companies that if I named now you wouldn't recognize, but we know very, very well. And that's going to be more traditionally like roofing, siding, windows, doors, a one-call close model, more upfront cost, lead-driven. You get a set appointment, you run it, you sell it, or you don't. And that's that. It's not so much doors. And if there are doors, it's canvassers and closers. So it's a very different, situation, but we kind of do both. So,
you're right about the roofing thing. There's two types of roofers. And I'm not about to shit on anybody, so don't take this disrespectfully, guys. I love all of y'all the same. The roofers are bread and butter, man. I love you guys. But there's the easy job, I think, I will call it, here in Texas, right? And states like Texas, Florida, where it's insurance restoration, like you're saying, the customer's not really paying any money. So it's a lot of roofers can knock on a door with a bad roof and say, hey, this won't cost you anything to fix it, and then make $5,000 or $10,000 in commission, right? Where you're at, that's not the case. So how's it work where you're at?
So, and not to your point, not to dismiss, because I know that they, it's
knocking doors ain't no joke, no matter what.
It's
right?
not. And I mean, there's a lot of back end that goes in with that, but I would describe it best as like that side is going to be a whole lot more hustle driven and less required sales acumen, where the retail market, which is what we would call the traditional one call close setup, is going to be more. You have to have the capital, first of all, to float all the leads. Your leads.
Yeah, you're looking at a certain demographic that can afford a $30,000 roof, a $50,000 bathroom remodel, or whatever the case it is. So,
and then how do you get, how do you target that demographic, but specifically, how do you pay for the leads that, you have to, the biggest issue with the remodeling industry, the biggest hiccup with anybody that's looking to go into it is you got to have the capital to sustain leads, because you want to have sales reps, and those sales reps are expecting qualified leads.
They got families to feed. With no leads, you don't eat.
Yep. And the second that they see, because they know that's the biggest weakness, the second they see leads are sparse, they're out. You know what I mean? Or they're not qualified. They're running appointments that are just, people aren't home, or one person's there, what we would call a one-legger. One decision maker's there, the other one isn't. That's not a qualified lead. A pro or a good rep's not going to stay very long. So you've got to have that stuff down, or you don't have a company.
Well, clearly, you're very experienced at this, right? And you've been in this industry for how long? Short period of time,
15,
huh?
15 no. In the remodeling industry, I've been in for 15 years.
Okay.
Insurance, it's only been a couple years.
Okay.
So I've been in the remodeling industry since 2008. And when we sold windows. Back then, windows were what roofing is now. There were shows about it. There was a show called like White Gold or something like that. It's just, those were the hot lit, man.
That's like a British show, right? Yeah, that is a great show.
Remember that? Yeah. That was the hot lit.
Those guys are fucking hustlers.
Yes, they were, man. And that was it. That was the move. That was roofing back, now. And I'm always at like, what's going to be the next roofing?
Solar, right? Solar's the big thing right now,
And that's taking a hit, bro. It's taking a hit, at least in our market, because it's dependent on rates, very dependent on rates. And rates are, I might imagine this being your show.
Yeah, say what the fuck you want.
Okay. Rates are fucked. And so it's hard, man. Now, if your rates comparative to like what they're paying in energy, and you could still kind of save money, and I already know some solar pros are going to be like, well, I sell
they
shit.
can debunk your math real quick.
Right. Or they're going to be like, I haven't sold one that saved, the customer money up front. Now, I'm not advocating or saying that anyone that I know would sell a customer something that was not good for them, but they're going to push the long-term savings versus the initial upfront savings. And I have a buddy of mine that's here in Texas that's like, dude, 80% of my sales are not saving them money day one. But it's a long-term savings that I'm able to articulate, and we still get to close. But in our market, it's tough. And I've got people paying me to learn roofing that used to do solar. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So,
I told the solar guys about this because we have a lot of them in Apex, and I've been telling them for 2 years, is like, you guys are all focused on savings. So when I was in the car business and the mortgage business, everybody around me that didn't perform at the level I performed was focused on how much money you could save or how much money it cost, right? Mm-hmm. So with a car, they were like, how much money the car cost? $1,500 back of invoice or whatever the case, right? Car dogs that listen to this are laughing like, where the fuck were you selling cars? 2011, bro. Totally different time, right? Totally different time. $1,500 back of invoice hadn't been said in at least 4 years around this motherfucker, right? It's usually $1,500 above MSRP at this point if you want a car. But anyway, back in the good old days when you could sell shit cheap, these guys would hustle to get $500 back of invoice, $1,500 back of invoice. The loan officers were trying to race to the bottom rate. Hey, I can get you, I can beat this rate. I can beat Kenny's rate, and the truth is nobody gave a shit about that. nobody goes to a dealership and it's like, oh, invoice. That's what maybe you heard it from your pops or your grandpa to ask for the invoice, but really you're like, I need a new vehicle. That's why I'm at the dealership. Right. That's why I'm searching Auto Trader. That's why I'm meeting this individual, because I need a new vehicle. The interest rate doesn't matter. The whether it needs this, that, or if the vehicle fits my needs and fits my budget, then fuck, I need it. Right. That's 99.9% of people. So these guys are over here trying to chase the bottom dollar when really they didn't have to. The person just needed their problem solved and was willing to pay happily for it. But if you come in and immediately start talking about, well, we can discount money off of this, you're going to go, well, shit, if he dropped his pants that easy, right. You know what I mean? Like, yes. And so the same thing on the mortgage side, but the reality of it is that they were focused on the wrong thing. In the mortgage world, nobody wants a lower interest rate, right? They want their dream home. Right? Like they'll take whatever rate. They don't want to get ripped off, but an eighth of a rate and $20 a month isn't going to make or break a relationship, right? And so many people just race to the bottom. But an eighth of a rate discount for a loan officer might be a $2,000-$3,000 hit in commission, you know? And so anyway, I say all of that because in the solar industry, I've been telling these guys, they got to stop focusing on payment and racing to the bottom. Mm-hmm. They need to start focusing on saving the planet. There's two things that if you're a solar pro, hear me out. There's two offers you need to position your company to have. Number one offer is that you're saving the planet. It's green energy. You know it's bad. Plants are bad. Nuclear plants are bad. This is the sun's energy. It's the most natural way of getting energy. And you should target tree huggers, right? For lack of a better term, you know? The second thing is guys like me. The reason why I don't want solar panels on my mansion in the city because they don't look good, right? Until we can figure out a solution that looks better, I'm not interested in it. However, I'm damn sure put solar panels on my ranch house. Why? Because I won't be off the grid. Right? So you've got the guys that want to be off the grid like me. That's a reason to sell me solar panels. And then you've got the people that are the tree huggers that have a bigger cause. That long-term savings shit's just a fucking icing on top of the cake when you are selling that. So just a little tidbit for everybody here. So 2008, what got you into the construction business? Is that a family thing or?
In 2008, and actually what you just said was awesome about solar. And there's one thing that popped in my mind. There's a book I read. It's called No Matter What. And the dude that has wrote it, it's McDonald something. He's won, I think, 5 Golden Door Awards in the SolarCon, which means he's done insane. I think it's like 200,000 megawatts. I can't remember. Admittedly, I haven't been in solar in a while, at least full time, but the guy's a freaking stud. And what he talks about is focusing on energy independence, which would be more close to what you were talking about, the latter, as far as like off the grid, which they're going to say like, oh, well, technically, depending on the state, you can't be off the grid. But any way you spin it, focusing on energy independence is what someone like that, a pro like that, would say, get away from, just like you said, if you're focusing on the savings, dude, you're screwed already. Because they're but if you focus on energy independence or the environment, that's a winning angle no matter what the circumstances are. But
if you go to hardcorecloser.com and type in the search button race to the bottom, you'll find a few articles on some innovative ways that you can stop selling on price and savings and sell on value and results. So there's some good articles over there. Same thing in the Sales Talk with Sales Pros group. You can use the search button in there and type keyword phrases, and there's a ton of content in there as well. So, all right, 2008, what got you in the business?
I got sold like any good salesman. Yep. You know what I mean?
That's
so I was selling insurance, and I don't know, man. I was scouted a lot. I like to talk to people. And so if I was ever in the room with someone like you or I, and we're always recruiting, right? Yep. We just had a conversation about a source, and we're not going to divulge because we got to go hit that source up first.
Yeah, don't tell them, damn.
I'm not going to tell them. That's me and you, man. Yeah. Yes, sir. You got to pay to play on that one. But we're always recruiting. So the adverse was true for me. I was being recruited, and I ran into a guy that was trying to recruit me for his new window company. I was like, maybe, man. But they were a startup, and they ended up, by the way, being one of the biggest companies and sold in my area. So regrettably, I could have got in on the ground floor there. I didn't. I went off to take an interview with another bigger company that had put an ad out on like monster.com. That's really dating myself, but and it was like make $1 million in a year. And I was like, sold. I'm there. Took the interview. It's this guy in a suit. Man, when you placate to that guy, me, and I come in there and you're in a suit, he's looking good, he's sharp. No, well, I'm not nothing weird, but almost got myself in trouble there. But the guy's looking good, man. He's sharp, right? He's in shape.
I think no homo is an acceptable phrase.
That is exactly the word I was looking for.
That's an acceptable phrase.
You never know these days. I keep forgetting the podcast.
It's just determining what your preference is in 2023. That's all.
You're listening to this podcast, man. You care about that. You're listening to it for the wrong reasons, anyways. So, but still, it's attractive, man. Like this guy, he used to play football. I think he played at Miami. I called him Bruce the Suit.
So he's got the shit, dude. You know, he got the juice.
He's looking, you know what I mean? He's working out. He looks, sharp. He's got a full suit on, and I come in there and I'm like, oh man, like.
So hold on, let me put the pause button real quick. So let me explain some of you guys out here, because one of the biggest things that comes into one of the biggest questions I get in my DMs from everybody, whether Apex members, business owners, whatever, is how do I recruit elite people? You listen to how he's explaining what Kenny's really saying is that motherfucker had everything that he wanted. That motherfucker was the man that he wanted to be. He's like, I saw the motherfucker that's the man I wanted to be, and immediately I was like, this is my fucking spot. So here's my question for you. Are you the fucking man that you want to be? Right? Are you the fucking CEO that you want to work for? Are you the man that you want to work for? Because you look at me and Kenny, if you watch this on YouTube, we're ripped as fuck, man. We're in the gym to be that motherfucker, because when someone walks in my office and they're in a job interview, I want them to go, that's fucking Ryan Stewman right there, man. That guy's living my fucking dream, man. I will fucking kill for this job because that guy's got the fucking shit that I want, right? You got the look too. You know what I mean? We have two completely different looks, but you got the fucking look too. You're always well put together. We were talking about the shoes and everything earlier. And so when someone comes in, they're like, fucking Kenny, man, he's in great shape, got a hot fucking wife, he owns his own house, big booming business, motherfucker's got a nice car. This is the guy that I want to fucking be, right? And so many people wonder why they got a bunch of B and C players, because you look like a B and C motherfucker. I'm just saying, like, don't hate the fucking information here. Take it and become better with it.
100%, dude. And
y'all need to chop this shit up and make it a fucking reel on Instagram. I'm just saying.
There's a couple of them that need to get out there. But until you just said that, because I always think about everybody always kind of like my identity almost now is like a guy that wears a suit. Yeah. And like even the chicks, every time I come to Apex, if I'm not wearing one, they're like, what are you doing?
You're like the fashion guy.
Right. Yeah. And I'm like,
you and Brandon.
Right, I guess. But what's funny, dude, is like I understood, because I was like, why do I? And it's because I want to portray a certain image to my people. I know that. Yep. Like on Monday, it started on Mondays. And to Ryan's point, well, why does it start on Mondays? Monday is the day that I do our sales meeting. So when I come in to present to my sales guys, I want to present to them what looks to me as the most put together, attractive version of myself, right? However that is. If it's you, Ryan, whatever your industry is, Ryan shows up, he might not be wearing a suit, but he's wearing a pressed black shirt that fits well.
Shit, he never got wrinkles in it.
Never got a single wrinkle on that bitch. Always got a nice watch, shoes, pulling up in a 720, hair done. I swear to God, the dude gets his hair cut, I don't know, in his sleep or some shit.
Every other week.
You'll never catch him without a fresh fade. But the point is, he's put together. And that is such a key point. So, and I think about that because you're right, dude. Like right away, his presence alone, the way he sat, he had a confidence. And I want to be a part of whatever it is. Before he opened his mouth, I'm like, dude, I'm in. You know what I mean? And that's fucking powerful. I never forgot that, even if it was a subconscious. I remember that feeling too.
I've had it.
You know what I mean?
There's a guy that's a friend of mine now. And he don't even know this. If he listens to this, he's going to be like, really? But there's a guy named Matt Morris, and I saw him put a multi-level marketing pitch on one time. This is how long ago it was, 20-something years ago. I've known the guy for forever. Man, he pulled up in a blue Ferrari, had a suit on, and Matt, he's a member of Apex. He's like 6'4", so he's like really fucking tall and handsome, you know what I mean? And he's got his shit together, and I'm like, damn, man, that guy's that's what I'm gonna do. He's smiling, he got to smile. I'm like, that motherfucker has to smile because he got so much money, So, and it was like that inspiration for me, So I remember being like, oh shit, that's possible. I'd never seen a Ferrari before that. I never seen somebody my age driving some shit like that or owning their own home or any of that shit. And when I seen this fucking dude show up, I was like, oh, that changed the thermostat. That's what this guy did for you.
100%.
He set the thermostat. You were on, 68, 67. He turned it up to 71, 72 for you. Like, oh, there's another level. There's a whole other tenth of degrees that I can step into over here.
100%. And they were smart about their recruiting process. Let me be clear. This company, they created a pool of sharks. from that single company, and I think that sales class of maybe 3, there's probably 6 other companies that have, I mean, probably 10 that have sprouted off from people that were in that training group. Or
A players. That's the downside of A players is they can go play by themselves, you know.
And, you know, the company, they were so good at recruiting that they could expand only so much. And, you know, those A players were looking to run offices. And when they only put 2 VPs in each office. So when, you know, and there were like 6 A players. So the other 4, they're not going to stick around, man. And they're some of the biggest, most successful companies in our area today. Some of them failed, but...
You know, that's a concept that when I got into the mortgage business in 2004, I had been working for this company for like a week. This was a week into... I washed cars, drove a tractor in prison, worked on a horse farm, and now I'm in the mortgage business, right? And... there was 2 loan officers arguing in the boss's office. I'm in there training with the boss, and there's 2 loan officers arguing, fuck you, motherfucker, this shit, right? And it was a girl and a gay dude. So I thought it was hilarious. First of all, like, you know, he was fighting as if he was a chick. She was fighting as if he was a man. It was like the funniest shit ever, right? I'd never been in that situation before because, like fancy people like that don't work at the car wash. You know what I mean?
Right.
And so, and the people usually in prison weren't voluntarily gay. So it was just like it was a whole new concept for me, right? And they're fighting. So I was really uncomfortable because when people fight and shit, I got PTSD. So when they leave, but the boss, she just let the whole thing go down. Let them fucking say their shit. And then she's like, okay, you guys done? Okay, blah, blah, blah. And then sent the fucking gay dude off his way and sent the chick off her way, right? But here's what happened. I asked her, I said, what would you just, those are your employees. I would have never let that happen at the car wash. 2 dudes arguing in front of other people and cussing each other out and stuff like that. She goes, that's my fault. How the fuck was it your fault? She goes, you should have never let 2 racehorses that are champions in the same stall at the same time. I'm like, oh, okay. And so that's what happened. You got 6 racehorses. You only got 2 stalls, and you got to put the other 4 in the same stall. That's not good for them.
No.
They'll fight each other.
No, and they probably made a lot of money. But I mean, they were still relatively new too. But to your point, yeah, I mean, like retaining, that's just part of the game though too, man. Is that like recruiting? Yeah, I learned so much valuable information and lessons from that one particular company. I'm always trying to I think I've always had an innate hey, I never had a fucking plan B. You know what I mean? Like for me, when I was a little kid, even I would literally pray at night to be some crazy shit when I got older. It started off as a baseball player, football player, hockey player. Then it was like, maybe I would just be a movie star or some shit. And I know that sounds crazy, but my point is, I never had a plan to just be sitting at a desk somewhere. It always had to be I'm going fucking big in this life, dude, no matter what I do. And so this seemed like that chance. You know what I mean? Like $1 million, and I see these people that look the way I want to look, that dress the way I want to dress, that drive the cars I want to drive. I'm young. I'm impressionable. That's a recruiting tactic. They're recruiting right out of college. They required a college degree. Didn't give a shit what it was, but they knew if you had the stick-to-itiveness to graduate college, you probably had some sense. They definitely, in my group, I was probably the only non-athlete out of that group, but I was a fraternity member. So they look at the parallels. They're like, all right, athletes. Fraternity shows, again, a level of stick-to-itiveness, teamwork. They're smart in their recruiting processes, man. Everyone that was sitting in that class, it was either you used to play football, you were an ex-athlete.
Just like we discussed, they found a pool.
Exactly.
You know,
yes,
they
sir.
found a pool. They
yes,
knew,
sir.
Yeah. So,
and they knew their hustle, and they had it down to it. I looked in that room, and I'll tell you this too. That's another thing about racehorses and everything. When I looked in that room, I felt good about myself because I looked around and I was like, damn, dude, they're a bunch of good-looking, fit, well-dressed. They required you couldn't walk in the office without a fucking tie. Like that was back in 08, bro. Yeah. So that's just dead now. Like you're wearing polos now, but. So
here's the big question. Stu is the man. You take the job. How much money did you make that year?
Well, here's the real funny part. I did really well the first couple months, but you know my past. That's right when everything happened. So it was right around. And for those who don't know, I've been to jail just like Ryan. Ryan and I have a very similar background. That's what attracted me to Ryan. And dude, just the guy looks the way I want to look, drives the cars I want to drive. He's doing the things that I want to do on social media, so I started following. Then I asked him to coach me, but that's besides the point. So
thank you, sir. Appreciate you saying that, though.
Couple months in, I sold my first deal. I sold my first deal, but it canceled because I made a rookie mistake, and I told them I would call them tomorrow, and that was like one of 3 no-nos. Do not open your mouth and promise something stupid because you just talk just to talk, because we do that. And I was like, I'm going to call you tomorrow. That one thing cost me the deal. They went out and saved it, but I lost it. You know what I'm saying? Because I told the people, oh, yeah, I'll follow up with you tomorrow. But anyhow, I sold my first deal, sold my first few deals, made some good money. But by the 2 months in, I had gotten in a car accident a few years prior, barely graduated college, broke my femur in 11 places, started getting fed pain pills for about 3 years. And I say that because that's back when that was happening, right? Like they were just like,
that's
you
prime
stubbed your toe, here, take these. Yeah. You know what I mean? And so now I had my leg completely reconstructed, but I had a lot of surgeries and stuff. So
shit still hurts. My fucking arm hurts.
Yes, but you don't need fucking fentanyl, bro. Like, you know what I mean? I'm just saying.
They didn't offer it to me. There was a time in my life where they could have, had I broke this at 24 years old, I would have been eating that shit.
Yes.
Thank God I'm smarter enough not to do that now.
And dude, my family was so green with all that. Like, we just didn't know.
Doctors.
Yeah. I thought, and my doctor lost his license, but that didn't change shit for me. So, like, at this point, I'm
like, he can't drive, but he can prescribe.
Right, yeah. Well, he was allowed to prescribe, he lost his license to prescribe fun stuff. He was allowed to see you, but he couldn't prescribe anything cool. But anyhow, man, without going too far into that, that became a big problem for me right around then. Like, it was right around the time when I was being pulled off of it. And it just wasn't as easy as I thought it was going to be, man. So I flocked towards getting it elsewhere, and it just turned into this big mess. And so unfortunately, man, and I learned something else too. They would not fire me. They would not fire me. Like, I stopped showing up. I didn't go to calls. I told them everything. My grandma must have been sick 20 times, dude. Like, poor grandma. She was the scapegoat. But I'm like, they wouldn't fire me. And do you know why? Because they had so much invested in me. They had 2 full weeks of their training, which was not taken lightly.
Right.
You know what I mean? That was their proprietary bread and butter, dude. Like, they poured into me. They were going to save my ass if they could. And they did everything in their power to, man. And God bless them, man. Like, I made it hard. They wouldn't fire me. Finally, they got the picture. And honestly, man, it was right around the time everything kind of fell apart for me. I ended up going to jail about a year later. And that year, post then, I went to 3 rehabs and jail. And when I came out of jail, I thought, okay, I can't do drugs, but I'll just drink. And it turns out I drink just like I do everything else, And as I get older, dude, when you're young like that and you're drinking like that, you're in a fraternity, everybody drinks like that. But you get older and all of a sudden you got 1 or 2 friends and you're like, dude, this drinking, fighting every weekend shit, now I'm feeling like a loser. You know what I mean? But I don't know how to stop. I always had one gear, and I just couldn't figure it out. But I always thought it was weak not being able to figure it out on my own. You know what I mean? And I just didn't respect that. I just was like, how the fuck can I not control something on my own of myself, right? Like, it just fucked with me for 10 years.
The ego's what gets you into that situation. It'll never get you out, though.
Yeah, and it's so funny, man. What ended up saving my life is finally, and I mean, my dad used to tell me, son, you were the most hard-headed person I've ever met in my life. You ought to be a lawyer. He would say that all the time. And my dad's former military, he just isn't that way. And like, I come from a family where why was like a cuss word. Like, why? You know what I mean? Because I said so, but old school. But my point is, like, when I finally gave up and was like, all right, dude, I'm done. What do I got to do? And it was the same shit they told me to do 100 other times. They being people in recovery, things like that. But this time I had my ass beat enough to be like, all right, I tried inventing my own shit, my own like club or recovery stuff, and you can come to my shit. I'm gonna do this, fix it. You come to my shit, and I'm gonna be the leader of all the new shit, because that's how fucking I was crazy, man. But none of that worked. It was when I finally was like, dude, I'm done. All right, I'll take these methods that have been working for years and years and years. But that saved my ass, man. But everything that happened had to happen, man. It had to happen for me to get to where I am. I was kind of a punk, I was kind of, I didn't appreciate shit. Things had always come relatively easy. That was what had to happen to create the man that's sitting here. Like, you talk about core values. You talk about, my dad raised me a certain way with principles. I completely threw all that out the window. And like, these people that loved me and raised me right, You know, and my parents got divorced, and boo-hoo, man. Motherfucking, what's the divorce rate now? Like, that's probably more normal than anything else. Like, that shit is not why. Yeah. My point is I have some making up to do, and for the last 6 years that I've been fortunate enough to be able to be, you know, sober and everything, I learned so much in sales, and it's like everything that had to happen happened to put me in this place where, like, now I have the knowledge, but I have the principles, the values, and the fucking hunger. You know what I mean? Like that. I don't have time to even wait a second because I got to fucking go. I pissed away a decade of my life, dicking around, in and out, in and out, in and out, trying to solve shit myself. And then now it's like, dude, I got to go. I got to go fucking now. And if you're in my way, you're going to get run the fuck over because I got to go. You know, like, I don't have another chance. You know what I mean?
You know, I don't know anybody. I'm not saying you're not out there, but I don't know anybody whose story is the reverse of yours. It's like, man, I never drank, but then I started drinking and life got so much better, you know, right. and because I was drinking, I became a millionaire. You know, I hear the story of, you know, I became a millionaire and then I drank and I lost it. I've heard the story of I was a loser and I drank. And I've heard the story of a loser, a drank, became more of a loser and got a DWI or whatever the fuck. But I've never heard anybody, and I know a lot of motherfuckers, bro. Tens of thousands of fucking motherfuckers I know. And I never heard anybody say, it got good when I started drinking.
Right.
You know, it wasn't until I pulled out the booze or the blow or the fucking pain pills or whatever the Xanax or whatever the fuck it was. There's only, in all of these years, I've heard people say they've gotten better off depression from medication, but never off of drugs or from prescribed medication. Their life get better.
That's a fucking great point.
I read a book called Save Me From Myself by Brian Welch when I was in federal prison. Brian goes by the name Head, if you are a fan of the band Korn, right? Yeah. And he gave his life to Jesus a couple decades ago and wrote a book about it. And he talks about Jonathan Davis and them were all on drugs, obviously, clearly, right? It's fucking can't make that good music sober. And so Jonathan would, you know, Jonathan Davis, the singer of Korn, would drink Jägermeister, throw up in the toilet, and then drink the throw up out of the fucking toilet to show everybody how fucking crazy he was, right? Like, that was the kind of lifestyle these guys were living, drugs left and right. There's pictures of them doing meth and stuff in the book. It's a good book. But he says, one day Jonathan Davis decided to try Prozac and his whole fucking life changed, right? Like, he became this upstanding citizen, ended up getting married, got his shit together, never drank again, never did drugs again. Their music hasn't really gotten any better since then, but fuck, man. You know, hey, they get the drugs, got the good shit, now he's got his life together. That's the story. You know, then even for celebrities, it's never, you know, oh, he started drinking. It's like, you know what comes is like spotted on TMZ drinking. It's like, fuck, we're about to lose such and such, you know? So that's just something to remind you, because there's somebody out there right now and you drinking or smoking weed. And listen, if it's not a problem, it's not a problem. Okay. Like, you know, I drink, so I'm not knocking that, but like maybe once a month, maybe, and I haven't been drunk in years, man. And fuck, you guys think I'm gonna go to Mexico and shit all the time with just my wife, and I still haven't been drunk in years. I haven't been hungover from alcohol in years. So I'd say that I'm not knocking drinking, but if it's a problem, it's probably the problem, if you know what I mean. If weed's what's making you lazy during the day, if it's a problem, it's probably the problem. And you know, there's guys like Kenny that can help you. There's guys like Mark Jennison that can help you. So if that is something that's out there, we have resources for you. So Kenny, just real quick, in case I forget at the end, what is your Instagram?
My Instagram is Ken Baden Motivation. And change it to that.
And you've got the Blue Collar Ballers group on Facebook too that they can opt into, right?
I do. I have the Blue Collar Ballers group on Facebook, and I also have my podcast, which is the Kitchen Table Podcast, which eventually we'll have, you know, Ryan on as well. But pretty much we've had a couple different people relevant to what we're talking about. Brandon J, a few different people on there that are super successful now. But we've even got, Wes Watson, most of the figures. That's what I really like about today, man. I was just talking about this last night with Brett. Most of the male figures in our industry, you being one of them, they promote being a good husband. What a fucking concept, right? They promote traditional masculine values in a fucking world full of pussies, and they're starving for men to stand up and be fucking men. And so many people are afraid to do that. So that's why I follow you. That's the fuck why I follow you. And these guys like Wes and guys, and they don't drink and do any of that shit. They don't advertise partying. You barely do. But look at who you see and you want to be, and what are they doing? They don't do that shit. You know what I mean?
Let me give the world some game here. Okay, I'm gonna look right into the camera with this. So, listen, in the past, the deviants were the people who did drugs. They were the people who were the rebels. They were the people who voted Democrat. They were the people who were different, right? They deviated from society. Over the last 3 decades, society has deviated from itself. And so now us deviants are the guys that don't drink, that don't abuse drugs, that are good husbands, that are good fathers, that are masculine men and proud of it, that we are looked at the deviants, because it's why aren't you tripping ayahuasca doing drugs every weekend, Mr. Stewman? Your peers are doing it and they seem to be figuring shit out. They seem to be, right? Why aren't you doing it? Why aren't you cheating on your wife like a lot of people are, having threesomes or whatever the fuck people do out there these days, right? It's these traditional values that, by the way, they're not traditional, they're God's values, right? But it's these God's values that now, if you're a person that's truly not some bullshit motherfucker that puts lover of Christian values on their fucking Facebook page. I'm talking about a motherfucker that don't gotta say shit because people fucking know you do it. When you become that person, these days we're the deviants. These straight edge fucking people that got their shit together. But here's the great thing about deviation in 2023. See, the previous set of deviants, they deviated from society. They did drugs, blah, blah, blah. That was cool. That's what caught on. Now that we've deviated from that, guess what? It's separation season, because us deviants, we're running the fucking businesses. We're fucking controlling the money. We're making our own rules. We're setting the standard. We're becoming the example. We're fucking inspiring and motivating people around us. You're not getting inspired and motivated. You shouldn't be inspired and motivated by some rapper fucking doing drugs or some fucking celebrity doing some fucking stupid shit that they do. You should be inspired by people like Kenny here, who came from fucking a life of fucking terrible decisions that decided to deviate from what everybody else is drinking, bro. Everybody else is poor. Everybody else is average. Everybody else is fucking drinking. Everybody else is having fucking crazy sex and all this other fucking shit. The deviants have deviated from fucking what everybody else is doing, and we're running shit, and it's fucking easy, because while they're distracted on the prescription pills and what fucking gender they are and all this other shit, we're just over here recruiting the top tier motherfuckers. We're over here being that person that Kenny talked about was for him at that company. We're over here being that person for fucking people who need that. And so, first of all, that puts an immense amount of pressure on a deviant's back these days. The old school deviant had no pressure. They go do drugs. They deviate from society. We deviated from that. So what do we got? We got the pressure of being the example. I don't know about you, but I don't wake up in the morning and be like, can't wait to go to the gym.
Right.
That's not me, right? But I know that that's how I stay a deviant, is I go to the gym because a lot of motherfuckers won't. You know, I know that I take care of myself and look good because my competition wasn't. You know, some of them are now because things are a little bit easier accessible than they were in the past, right? But they weren't in the past, and still a lot of them aren't. So I just want to say that these days, if you're somebody who's living a good, clean life, be an example, whether you're a woman or a man, good, clean life, be an example, you're a fucking deviant, right? And be proud of that, because it means something different in 2023 than it did just a few decades ago. So, all right. 2008 all the way up to 6 years ago, which would be 2017, you made bad decisions, but shit turned around for you. You started to get your life back on track. Now, flash forward in 2023, you've got a team of how many people?
I've got 15 reps in the insurance restoration side, a couple of reps in the retail. It's probably like 30 people altogether. Well, and then you start counting contractors and stuff. We've got 10
But you've got 30
W2s.
full-time
Yeah.
employees plus a bunch of contractors.
10 W2s. So we've got, I mean, the company has expanded. It's so fast, man. Like, there's been 4 other startups, 2 companies, me and a partner that didn't work out, man. And hey, that's okay. All this shit had to happen to get me here. As far as this particular company, yes, sir. 2.5 years in, and we have, and it's funny, man, because I compare myself to like Tony, these guys. I'm like, motherfucker, man. Like, it's because I've been doing this for so long. But comparatively and relative like time, it's only been 2.5 years. And in that span, what we've done, our distributor told us the other day, they're like, we're trying to get you into our most coveted warranty status, but you don't have the technical time allotted to even be in. Like,
Right,
you're
so
so
they say
new.
It might be 10 million in sales, but you also need 3 years,
Right,
and you
3
got
years.
50
And
million
I've
in
got-
sales,
and-
and they're like, but you got 2 years.
Well, I mean, yeah. I mean, I wish we had 50 million, but I mean,
But you get the
right,
point, yeah.
exactly. But so the point is not even 2 years in, they approached us for that, and I was like, well,
First of all, like, this is how honest Kenny is. He's like, no, we're not close to 50 million. I appreciate that. A lot of motherfuckers would have sat there and been like, yeah, you know how it is.
I fucking
I
hate
just,
that.
I do
hate
too, man.
that.
I just
hate
appreciate that, man.
Thank you, because I fucking hate that, and you know who you are. You know
Yeah,
who you are,
fucking do.
and we know who you
Yeah,
are.
we know
Stop
who you are.
doing
That's
it.
what's more important.
God
We know who
damn.
you are.
We
Yeah.
all know. It's so easy to debunk. Just stop doing that shit. Jesus, man. Sorry. Anyhow, so that's why I'm like that, because I'm like, no, I hate that.
Yeah,
so I'm
me
not
too.
going to catch myself being that. But I also have to give myself a break, because even though I may not, I fucking will, first of all. And
Yeah.
second of all, if you look at it over time, what we've done in not even 2 years as my distributor's like, brother, this is unheard of territory. Like, in a market that is not, to your point, and I don't want to say easy.
It's not an insurance market. Yeah.
It just isn't, right? It's not a storm market where you're going to fall into 10, 20 million. And I say that, we know some of the best fucking guys that ever did it. And those guys are Kurt Lennington is a fucking businessman, right?
Yeah.
Like, he did not fall into shit. But there are guys that have fallen into it, man, because they got the hustle. It's hustle driven. You can get so far, but you ain't scaling without that business acumen. You know what I mean? But you can fall into the 10, 20 that you get in a storm market is more like 10 max in our market. And that's max. I'm talking you're getting somewhere if you're doing a storm market. Retail, the company I came from is almost $1 billion a year industry now, a company now, right? But they did it arguably the hard way. But you control the margins. You control a lot of things when you're a retail-driven company, right? Like, you control the sales reps, you control all
Insurance isn't dictating your money either, right? If you want to make 50 grand on a bathroom, you know, if you're doing something insurance driven, they might be like, this is a 10 grand job, bro. And then you're having to like minimize and make the homeowner upset and all that shit. Where in your deal, it's like, if it's 50 grand, it's fucking 50 grand.
Exactly.
You want marble, we
100%.
put marble in there.
And we're kicking back off retail in the fall. But to answer, so where we're at right now is, you know, we're going into our third year. And again, this is like company number 5 that I've either been a part of putting together, whether it was a VP or sales manager or partner. This is exclusively my own, but I also have an amazing team. And that's what I've been the most focused on, because, dude, I've read all the books. Not all of them, because I'm an avid reader, and I always, anytime I see a book that's like Hermosi's, any book you ever point me on to or anything, I'm on that. But I'm so ADD. I'm like, I'm still reading this book. Now I'm starting to read this book, and I'm bouncing around all these different books. So I've kind of committed to, like, I got to finish this fucking book. So currently I'm reading and finishing the 13 fatal errors that managers make and how to avoid them. That's a great book if anybody who's looking to just the basics on management. But so much of what I've learned has been hidden in these weird things they call books. It's a fucking crazy concept. Yeah. But, you know, and it gets regurgitated, and we were just talking about that, and the right person says it, and all of a sudden they're fucking popping off on YouTube. But guys like you and I, we're trying to find some new shit to say. But, you know, maybe if we just said the shit that everybody else, I don't know. But at any rate, my point is I've been focused a lot more on the psychology of the sale, the systems. That's what I wanted. I have a consulting company. I've got Blue Collar Ballers, which is really more of like my passion. Admittedly, when we jumped into that, it was an opportunity to work with my coach on something that I really want to do in the future. That was kind of always my plan. Like, all right, I'm going to sell. And that's how I think, man. I'm like, there is no fucking plan B. So we build the business up, we sell the business being sold is a resume point. So it makes me official, because there's a lot of motherfuckers out there on the coaching side that's just
unofficial.
What exactly? What is your resume? What are your qualifiers? Who knows how or what you say you did, if you even did. It goes back to that bullshit factor we were just talking about, because you got motherfuckers like that all of a sudden are doing coaching. Like, well, I did $1 bazillion last year. So,
right.
You know what I mean? Like, but point is I wanted that resume stamp, and then, you know, but what I also caught myself doing is succumbing to fear. Like, well, I'm going to start doing that when I do $1 million, when I do 10 million, when I do 5 million. Well, I've reached some of those points. So I'm like, all right, bro, we're going to have to meet in the middle here. You know what I mean? Maybe we get it started now, and then we get the exit. We have a future year exit date already set. I'm already meeting and putting these pieces in place. So I'm very aware of where I want to go, and I'm already acting as if. I'm meeting with attorneys. I'm meeting with CPAs. I'm setting all that shit up right now because that's what's gonna happen. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, because nothing's worse. That's Kenny's actually giving you some game here, folks. Like, nothing's worse than somebody taking an interest in your company. Hey, we saw your commercial, we saw your ad, we heard about you from somewhere, we're interested in you, and you're not having your shit together.
yes.
It takes a couple of years and you motherfuckers always got somebody smart to argue with me. So, like, you know, I'm not a license to do anything other than drive a car. So calm the fuck down. So, but what I'm about to say is, you guys, it takes a couple of years for you to make arrangements in the right paperwork set up with the IRS. A lot of these cats out there tell you, oh, you can set up a trust and a blah, 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 and we'll do it overnight for you. And that sends a lot of red flags. Trust me, goddamn, I'm speaking from experience. I've been audited and shit. That sends red flags to the IRS. Kenny and I both use the same attorney now, Wayne Zell, and what he does, he's like, hey man, this is a couple year process of just filing a little by little so that it's not a big alert overnight. And so, you know, Kenny's going through this process of filing these paperwork, getting his shit set up so that when they do say, hey, we saw your ad, heard your referral, blah, 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 let's see what you're at. He's already ready for the tax benefits. He's already ready for the fucking SOPs to exit. He's like, oh, here's my fucking portfolio, my pitch book, my fucking everything but a dick pic here that you guys fucking need, a blood sample, stool sample, urine, whatever the fuck, so that you guys have the company. He's prepared for that. A lot of you, you know, they say excellence is when preparation meets opportunity, right? That's what success happens. I said excellence, I meant success. That's when success happens. If you're wanting success in exiting a business, it can't be opportunity only. You have to have the preparation part. So I just want to reiterate that when he skips over that real quick. It's like, we're putting these things in place, but that's because he really plans to exit. A lot of y'all motherfuckers are saying you really want to plan to exit your business, but you're not doing what Kenny's doing right here. You're setting yourself up to be stuck in that motherfucker for forever. So,
and that's a great point, man, because it's not even just the simple things. Like, again, everything had to happen the way it happened in order for me to be the best prepared I could be. And I take this shit serious because guys like us, man, I'm a felon. I literally, in 17, I had lost everything. No license, no nothing. I didn't have a fucking bank account. I couldn't get a bank account for 2 years. So that means I've only had a bank account for 4 years. You know what I mean? And I just got my first house. And I have 3 businesses. So there's no fucking excuse like out there good enough that you can't do the same shit. There's nothing that we have that anybody that's watching this other than that get up and fucking go. And I think that having our ass kicked in life to a point where it's like, all right, you're either gonna walk or that's it, you're done. And you get up and you fucking go. And the people that come out of that fucking go. And you're sitting here, I'm following one right now, and I hope to be, I am one myself. You know what I mean? And so back to the point that Ryan made, though, it is so important to do the little fucking things right, because I can tell you from experience as well, I have seen and had seen companies that I have been a part of as startups get audited, not manage cash flow, and fall apart. And I watched over the course of these last few companies, I was like, all right, well, here's what I'm not fucking doing. Yep. You know what I mean? And so early on, I had an attorney that I arranged something with, and as you level up, you get different attorneys and different CPAs. And I had one that met me every 2 weeks, came in my office every 2 weeks, met with my office manager every 2 weeks, and like getting shit in order for files in case we were audited for files. I mean, I don't fucking know if that may or may not happen, but I want to make sure my files are in the right place, my paperwork is correct, that I have. There's things like,
it may not be the audit, bro. It may be the private equity guys one day. They audit your shit
yes,
too. They don't just
right,
go, oh, you say you do this, oh, handshake, we're
yes,
out. No,
yes,
they want all that blood sample shit. You know?
And that's, so I'm glad you said that, dude, because Kurt warned me about the due diligence period too.
Yeah.
That's another thing.
That's where a lot of people fall out. You know, they're like, oh, you don't have anything here. You're just hustling, you know? You've got quite a few people working for you. What is something that you use to bring in leads, right? You've got people that are sales guys, obviously knocking doors is a part of it, but that can't be as good for what you're doing, because you can't be like, hey, have you ever thought about remodeling about, you know what I mean? It's a little different up there. It's not an insurance world. So, I mean, I wouldn't give, just between us, I wouldn't give them like, oh, hey, I'm going to taboola.com and running GDN slates. But like, what are some of the ways that you advertise and things to get leads in the door? So
I'm still a big fan of, in my opinion, even if you have a retail company or insurance, that you still need you've got main courses, and then you have side dishes or appetizers. And in my opinion, you still got to have a main course that is residual and internal. So whether that's canvassing or a call center, I think if you don't have something like that, you're going to spend a whole lot of money for leads that everyone else is getting. They're not exclusive leads. That's why those internal sources are so coveted. They're coveted because they mean exclusivity. Exclusivity means higher margins, right? Emotional buys. And I'm going to put some people on some game here, because if you intend to sell for a higher ticket, then you absolutely have got to target an emotional buy. And I don't mean to be like nefarious or any poor business practices, but I'm just flat out sales. And I am a big, big fan of the psychology and the emotion and all the science behind a sale. Sales is relationships, and that's why I love hearing you talk, and Brad Lee talks about it all the time, value relationships over money, or making that mistake. But it really is relationships. And I think that's why I was so good at it, because I genuinely gravitate toward, I like meeting people. I like, I want you to be what I think you are. You know what I mean? Like, and that gets me in trouble sometimes. But I'll talk to the guy pumping gas next to me. Yeah, all the time, man. But, I can't be in line at the supermarket without talking to the person behind me. So building relationships is easy for me, but I also like teaching people who it's not so easy to. I also like the science behind understanding that different people that work for me and different people that sit across from me in the house make decisions differently than I do. If you don't understand that, you're going to be in trouble when it comes to sales. So there's stuff called the DISC method that Billie Jean talked about, and there's a Myers-Briggs, there's a few other examples of that, but DISC is my favorite, and there's a great book that I read, and we'll save that for another time, but the DISC method is so easy, you can research that, but really, the back to the marketing aspect, if you don't understand who your demographic, so that's the first thing I would do, is dial in who's my demographic, first of all, and how do I reach them, but what's the exclusivity that I'm going to have? Because if you go in and you're a new business and you're just going to pay for leads, you're probably going to be in trouble, because those leads are, what the objection is going to be. All right, well, I've got 3 other appointments already set up, and you know that because you paid for this from such and such leads.com.
Angie's List or some shit.
Right, and they're going to be, it's a race to the bottom,
it's
right?
Like the progressive insurance model. You're just going to pick the cheapest one.
Yes.
As a consumer of construction shit, right? I build houses, remodel my house, flip homes and stuff. The cheapest ain't always the best either.
No.
Typically it's not. You get what you pay for in that. We use a company here locally called Milestone, and they're probably really expensive compared to everybody else, but everything is guaranteed, warranted. Everything's inspected. They have the city come by and inspect your shit for everything that they do. So it's just like, I know that it costs more, but I know the shit's going to be done exactly right, And so that, for me, that's the emotion sale for me, is not money. It's like, I just know that I'm not going to have to call these fuckers out here again, and it's going to be fixed. Because I went through a period where I ABC plumbing or whatever the hell, and then I still got a drip, and they got to come out 4 times, and then every time they come out, they want to charge me more money because it's something else they didn't fix in the first place, and ends up costing me the same as Milestone anyway, who just showed me from their pamphlet up front. So
I'm glad you said that, man, because it really isn't. The emotional sale is not like, oh, I'm going to sneak in here.
Yeah, it isn't like, we're going to take your kids if you don't buy, or, you got to make them cry.
It's the bigger companies that are really able to sell on their name. Yeah. And that's the emotion behind it. Like, it's because it isn't dollars and cents. It's an emotion. It's, hey, look, we're the biggest company out here, and that's not us. So that puts us in a weird spot, because we're not that. But we're also not trying to race to the bottom. So what you often do is you identify the target margin that you want to be at. You sure as hell hope, if I'm coming behind anybody, hopefully it's one of them, because then they're way up here. And because I'm small and my overhead is super minimalistic, I can be right there in the middle and help this person out, save them some money, and I'm making a ton because I
get referrals.
And I get referrals. And so that would be like, if you're just getting started and you're in the retail game, that would be where I would start first. And canvassing has its pitfalls because you really, and it boils back down to what I said earlier, is people, dude. Like finding your team. You've got one of the best teams, Andy, these other people that I see, like they've all got these studs in place, these aces in places. And like for me, I'm very into picking apart what the best do. You know what I mean? And so I see that the best have the best. One of my mentors, his name is Adam Champagne. He's in Maryland. He's a CEO of Home Fix, top 25 remodeling company. Adam is now, you know, in ownership. Adam is now a big partner in all this. But at one point, he was some kid from Capitol Hill that was wowed by the same factor I was. He met the owner at the time in the suit, and this guy is like, his name is Tope Lala. He is the owner of all this shit. And he looks like how he sounds, dude. He looks like this Italian gangster in full-on suit, like just, you're like, damn, dude, well, this guy's something. Whatever he is, he's something. He's got it,
yeah.
you know, and he's very calm and smart as shit. He's Armenian, actually, just like Patrick, right? Yep. And very much like that, right? So you're like, all right, whatever, this guy's got something, you know?
Right.
And so, but the dude now, you know, now you've got Adam, who I'm like, damn, dude, imagine if you found that an Adam, right? This guy fucking kills himself. And now, again, he's got equity and all this stuff, and he's an ownership. But, like, you find that guy that's ready, that sees the opportunity that you're offering, but moreover, what the fuck is the opportunity that you're offering? Are you offering an opportunity good enough to attract an Adam or a Ken or an Ryan? You know, like, I think about this shit, and I'm like, and honestly, he said, what's his name? Nihal said at MDM, and he was like, I always want to have, you know, I always want to, if I'm not offering or adding value, go somewhere else. And I thought that was ballsy as hell, man. But it's the exact way I feel. I just didn't articulate it that way. Like, dude, if I'm not keeping you around based purely on the opportunity you have here, I don't want to have signing non-disclosure, or NDAs are one thing, but I hate, what are they? The thing that prohibits you from going to go. That's, to me, is trash, bro. Like, and that's just me. I refused to sign them when I was in there. Non-competes are very popular in our industry. But if you're that worried about people taking your proprietary stuff that you've got to handcuff them for 6 months to a year, like, you're not going to go. I've had one guy sign one ever, and it was right when we split, and it was because he was training for another company, and that's Brett, and he's here with me in Texas right now, knocking doors, right? That non-compete ended 2 years ago. Right. But my non-compete is, I'm going to handcuff you with what I'm offering. Value.
Golden handcuff.
And the golden handcuffs, Wayne, by the way, come afterwards, because my value is going to be, look, man, look, here's what we're doing. I'm going to lay this whole motherfucker out for you. Here's the 5-year plan when we're sitting here talking. If you don't have a plan, what do you have? You just have a lifestyle business, and a lot of motherfuckers have a lifestyle business. I am trying to be a true entrepreneur in that I have a goal. I'd like to sell. And I'd like to sell again. And I don't mean to say sell and we all ride off into the sunset, no one has a job. It's important to understand what that means. Because when I first started pitching that, people are like, what does that happen? What happens to us? It's like, okay, we want people to invest. We want to be invested in and then take it to the next level, and then the next level, and then the next level. It means security. It means options. It means equity propositions for people that are in leadership roles. And those are the golden handcuffs that you pitch somebody on, like, look, you come rock with me. Here's why you should be with me versus these other people, because I'm really doing what I say I'm going to do, and I'm going to put you in an equity proposition. By the end of this year, Wayne will have everything done. He said 6 months to a year. Not only will all the companies be broken down, the holding companies and all that, everything's getting started here in the next month or so, but we'll have those golden handcuffs. Guys like Brett, guys like Matt, guys like Kevin, my core group of guys that I've assembled one by one are going to be in a mutually beneficial way, golden handcuffs, hence the phrase, like locked in. Okay, you're in, and you got to be here at sale or exit. But when you are, you're going to get a piece of this, man, because you fucking deserve it. Yeah. And it's
that's same with me.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, I'm following you, bro. So, I mean, shit, dude. I learned this decision to join not just Apex, but I didn't even know, first of all, but I joined with Ryan. A lot of the shit I do, I don't want to say isn't well thought out. That's very poorly, but sometimes it's like a gut thing. You know what I mean?
It's ready, fire, aim.
Yes. Yeah, right. Yeah. And like,
that's a great book, by the way, if you've never read it.
I haven't.
No, it's a great book.
See, now you got add one to the ADHD book read list.
Great fucking book.
Ready, fire, aim. I'm going to do it. But I saw an opportunity of a guy I wanted to be like, who was like, yo, I'm going to take one of coaching. I wasn't even in Apex yet. I didn't know that that's typically where you're recruited from. And I just shot my shot, because why the fuck not? He's literally saying, I will at least entertain it, but you won't know if you don't try. You know what I mean? I didn't think you'd even DM me back. And here we are sitting here 10 months later on a podcast together.
I called everybody that said, I had no shortage of people to call, but I always called just like this time. I called and talked to everybody I thought was a qualified candidate. Last thing I want to do is take somebody's money and get stuck with somebody that either A, we can't win, or we can't get along, or, you know what I mean? That's like the worst, is you're like, 11 more months of this shit, So Well, man, one more time, tell folks how they can find you, like Instagram, Facebook.
Instagram would be Ken Baden Motivation. Facebook, Kenny Baden, KennyBaden, and Ken Baden Motivation, which I thought was easier on Instagram, but I've changed that a couple times, which is why I think they won't give me my blue check, but I don't know. And then I have the Kitchen Table Podcast, which has got some great people just like this, and the Blue Collar Ballers Union, man. The Blue Collar Ballers Facebook group is free. If you're a blue-collar industry professional and you like the stuff that you're hearing here, there's a lot more of that. We go into the psychology of sales and all the different tidbits that tend to placate toward the blue-collar industry. But it's really, if you're an entrepreneur or anybody who's looking to just level up, man, it's a great group of people. So check it out, Blue Collar Ballers on Facebook.
Yeah, there's some real serious players in that group too. So
yes, there are. Ryan's in that group, Kurt's in that group, Brandon Jay's in that group.
Brandon James, yep.
Yeah,
So, man, I appreciate you coming on here today, man. And hopefully you listening in the audience, you got some value from this. You know, I wanted to make these conversations to where it's not hey, so can you tell us about your life, more than having a conversation about bringing value. I think the big value points today were be that motherfucker that's the example that you want to be. You're wondering why your team may be full of people that you don't like or you consider C or D players. It's like maybe you're not an A player. So it's a rough reality to go look in the mirror and make that decision. Are you, there's been several times where Kenny's like, this guy had it. He's suit, he blah, blah, blah. And so in Kenny's mind, that's what that person is. If you're looking to put Kenny's on your team, then you need to be that fucking person, right? So I think that was a big takeaway. And then, having that culture that we talked about in the company and setting the standards there to give them the golden handcuffs was huge too. So Kenny, I appreciate you coming on here. For those of you listening, make sure you share this shit, send it to somebody. Somebody needs to hear this conversation. That there was some fucking bombs that we dropped in here, Brad Lee style today. Shout out to my man. I'm actually headed to see him this week. I will be on dropping bombs in the next week or so. And so, man, I know that you guys got some value from it. So share it with someone who can benefit from it. And we'll see you on the next episode. Rise above.